Which bees are better? Let's talk about queens today. Let's just sit back and relax, get a cup of coffee, why don't you? And just listen to me tell you more about queens. Queens are the most important aspect of your colony. Without the queen, your colony is going to fail. The females in the colony that aren't queens, they're the workers. And yeah, they have ovaries. They can make eggs in the case where they have to, but since they never can mate, they're going to produce only drones. And that's called a laying worker. And that only occurs when your queen fails and there's no brood in the colony, because it takes the queen's pheromone and the pheromone of the brood to keep all those female worker bees from laying eggs. They can't lay as many as the queen can, but they can lay in the case where you lose your queen and you don't replace her. And it's been a given amount of time, they'll go ahead and start laying eggs that become drones laid in worker-sized cells, so they're smaller drones. So the queen is the one that has to be in that hive and be a good layer. When the queen goes out to mate, a virgin queen only goes out one time, maybe twice in the beginning to mate, and once she's fully mated, she'll never fly out again except if the colony decides to swarm in the future. But other than that, she only mates once. She will fly out to mate maybe 1.5 miles away from her colony to get away from her brothers to prevent inbreeding. And she'll mate with drones in a drone congregation area, maybe high above the trees, 80 feet high. She'll just fly in there. She'll mate with 20 or 30 drones in one mating flight. And those drones, once they mate with her, they die after they mate with her, instantly just crash to the ground. When she comes back to the colony after mating with the drones, then she stores the sperm from those 20 or 30 drones in her spermatheca. That means that for the rest of her life, she has the ability to use the collected sperm stored in the spermatheca to continue to fertilize eggs, and those fertilized eggs become female worker bees. Now she can choose not to fertilize an egg, and that's how we get drones. We need drones to mate with other colonies, other virgin queens from other colonies. So once this queen comes back, she's mated, she starts laying in a few days after that, then she is the one that lays all the brood, so that brood becomes workers, so she's laying 1,000 to 2,000 eggs per day to make that workforce. That workforce is constantly being replaced in the beekeeping season as bees die every 35 days when it's summer. And so she's having to replace all those workers constantly. There's a turnover of workers. Let me tell you a scenario. It's happened to you, it's happened to me a lot. You're having a great time keeping bees, you love your hive, it's beautiful, you're checking for the brood, you see eggs, you see larvae, you see capped over pupae, you know there's your queen. You don't have to see her every time you inspect a hive, but you need to see that you see eggs, that she's laying eggs. So let's say you go into your hive and you don't see any brood and you're like, uh-oh, something's wrong. And you look around and you can tell there's no brood. You look for the queen, there's no queen. The queen is gone, she's dead. Okay, fine. They're going to replace her, right? So you close up your hive, you think, okay, they're going to replace my queen, so I'll have a new queen. It's going to take 30 days by the time they raise a queen, takes 16 days from the egg until she emerges, and then it's going to take a week or two more after that for her to go on her mating flight and start laying eggs. So 30 days, if she lays 1,000 eggs a day, you're down 30,000 bees by waiting for them to raise their own queen. That equals 3 packages of bees, 30,000. And so that's why you should consider raising your own queens. It's not that hard. And I'm going to have this series now on how to raise queens. It won't be so in-depth to take you through every nuance of raising queens. Like I said, I've got a booklet that's free. You can download that. And I'll also have an online class if you want to drill down further. But I want to tell you enough that you can wrap your mind around it and decide if this is something you want to do. Fair enough? All right, so when you're raising queens, thinking about the idea should be, not only can I raise queens for me to replace my failing queens, or maybe I want to make a split and I want to have a mated queen ready to put in there without having to buy one, I can raise my own queens and I can expand my beekeeping hive count. I can have more hives with the queens that I produce. We raise nucleuses of hives and we sell those in the spring, so we need queens. We have to have queens to go in those nucleuses. We sell packages in the spring, so we have to have hundreds upon hundreds of queens to go into those packages. So we have to raise a lot of queens. And you may be thinking, I'm not a commercial guy, I don't sell packages or nukes. Yeah, but even a backyard beekeeper with one hive, it would be great to have the ability to make queens, either to help out your fellow bee club, your fellow beekeepers in the bee club, or to make maybe 2 or 3 queens a week and sell them, make $100, $200 a week of extra income. That might go a long way. I mean, if you can sell a queen for $35, let's say you raise, 5 a week. Well, you're going to be making $200 a week selling just 5 queens. And so that can help you a lot, have a little bit of extra income. And gosh, I don't know about you, but I think we can all use a little extra income, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can think about and reasons why you might feel good about raising queen. But I'm going to tell you the best one of all. Here's the best reason out of all the things I've just said for you to raise your own queen. Because you can choose the type of queen that you want. And what I mean by that is you can go out there and find the best hive on your property. You love it, it's performing beautifully, and you can raise queens from that hive. And by doing that, you're going to get a very large part of the genetics that are going to follow into future colonies that you're going to be having as swarms or splits or whatever. You're going to be able to use the genetics from the queen that you love so much. That's why I got into raising queens, is because I knew I could control to a larger degree what kind of performance I was going to get based on the breeder queen that I would select as the ones that I would make daughters from to be my queens on my property. Now, if you've ever pursued raising your own queens, thought about it, you might have gotten some pushback from people saying, oh, it's too hard. You have to learn to graft. You have to have good eyesight. You have to have a steady hand. You have to have 1 billion colonies. None of that's true. I mean, you can work around any challenge that you have. When I first started raising queens, I walked out to one big gigantic hive, 2 deeps and a honey super. It was full, it was healthy. I started raising queens right there. I just started simple. So you don't have to have 1,000 colonies. Now, if you wanted to raise 1 billion queens, you're going to need a lot of colonies. But you really don't need all that much equipment. Most of you that are watching this video have enough bees or enough equipment to raise a good number of queens. You just have to be resourceful in the way that you do it. So let me explain it to you in simple terms. If I were to raise a queen right now in the simplest of ways that I do it, and this is following the procedure that John and I wrote in our booklet and what's in my online beekeeping course. But what I would do is I would find that perfect colony that I love so much. I love all of their characteristics. And I would go pull out a frame of brood that has eggs in it. Because on that frame that has eggs, there are going to be larvae. And what we're looking for when we're grafting that larvae to become queens, you see, bees will feed all larvae 1 to 3 days old, they'll feed it royal jelly. But after past day 3, they start feeding it worker jelly. So we have about a 3-day window to choose the right size larvae where they are being fed. So genetically, they could either become a queen or become a worker bee. And so if we catch the larvae on day 1, we are ensured that that's a young enough larvae that we can graft it out of there and put it in one of those wax queen cups that I showed you in my last video. And then we could put it in a starter hive and they will raise queens from it. So let's back up. Let me kind of make this simple. So you're going to go out, you're going to find a great colony that you love, and you want to raise daughters from that queen because that colony has good characteristics. You pull a frame out with eggs on it. You find a 1-day-old larvae. That means a larva that just settled down on the bottom. It has changed into that larva from an egg. And so once it's sitting there, like it looks like a tiny C, the letter C, then you take your grafting tool and you scoop it up with that royal jelly, and then you transfer it over to those queen cups that we made on that cell bar, and you push the little button and it shoves it off onto the base of your new cell. Now, if you just want to raise 1 queen, that's all you got to do. But I think if you're just starting out, you might as well do about 10 or more on that cell bar just for insurance. If you don't use them all, they may not all take, so you might as well graft 10 or 12 on one bar. You would graft your one-day-old larvae and you'd put them in here. And once you have them in here, then you take them into and put them in this cell bar frame. Now I make my own cell bar frames. You can buy these in queen room kits perhaps, but I just stapled on some blocks here with a staple gun so that now I can take this cell bar, and once you turn these larvae upside down, they're not going to fall out. They're a little too sticky from the royal jelly, and then you just place them in here like this. And once they're here, you just place them in like this. Now a colony that has a queen is not going to raise these queens because they know that they have a queen, they don't need a queen. When bees see these cups upside down like that, bees are sharp enough to know that that's a queen and we don't need a queen. Unless you put some bees in a box without a queen called a starter hive, then they want a queen. So as soon as they see this upside down cell that we created, and they see that we put a one-day-old larvae in there, guess what? They're like, yes, we can raise our queen. We're not gonna perish. So they get excited. That's why you start with a 5-frame nucleus of bees that are maybe between the ages of 6 to 12 days old. Now, how do you find bees of that age to put in a nuke box? You go around, you look at a colony, you just simply sweep off or brush off the bees of open brood. Those are your nurse bees that are feeding the open brood. So you take a few of them out of a big colony and you put them in a starter hive or a 5-frame nucleus, and then you leave a frame in the middle for such as this, and you put that in there and you leave it for 24 hours. Those nurse bees will raise these queen cells out. They'll add wax to the cups that we already have. They won't totally cap them off, but they'll add wax to them. They'll feed the larvae royal jelly. They'll start packing royal jelly in there. After 24 hours, 36 at the most, you take this out with the bees on it and everything. What works best for me is to take a hive that has 2 deeps on it, full of bees, the brood boxes or 2 brood boxes. And I'm gonna put a queen excluder between the 2 deep brood boxes and hold my queen down below with the queen excluder. I'm gonna put this frame up in the top deep. There's no queen up there. Now, these bees in this 2 deep hive body, even though the queen isn't present in my top deep, if I hadn't started these, they wouldn't have started it. Why? Because they're queen right. The pheromones are all in that hive. I started them in a cell starter box, a starter hive. And so once I take them out of the cell starter box, I put them in this regular hive with a queen excluder, because even though there's a presence of a queen through pheromone in that top deep, those bees feel obligated to keep the work going. They're like, well, we have a queen, but somebody's raising queens, so we better get to work. And they'll draw these cups all the way into full-size cells after they keep feeding and massaging those cells. And so now all you have to remember is go back about 13, 14 days after you have originally grafted those grafts, and you may want to look and get these out before they emerge on day 16. So before day 16, when they come out, you don't want them to all come out at one time or they'll kill each other. Then you pull these off and you move them over to your place where you want them to be, like a swarm that you've just made that's queenless, or you're making a split. So you're going to use one of these queens that you raise. You put that cell in that split. So let me summarize again. You do a graft on day 1. You put it in here, you put this in a cell starter, a starter hive, 5-frame nucleus full of nurse bees that you brushed off of frames with open brood. Those are nurse bees. And then you leave it in there 24 hours. After 24 hours, you take it out with the bees on it, move it over to a 2 deep hive that's going on with 2 brood boxes. Put a queen excluder between the 2 brood boxes, make sure the queen's down below. And now you put this in the top, you take a frame out, put it in another hive somewhere, maybe where you took that one from. But anyway, you put this in the top deep box, and those bees will raise these out, And so day 14, 15, not on day 16, get in there before they emerge. You take these out, take these cups off before the queens emerge, their cells now, and put them somewhere, either in mating boxes or where you want them to be, like a split, or maybe you had a swarm where you want to replace that queen or something. Then you use them in those applications. That's the simplicity of raising queens. Now, you can see on this frame here that I have a place to put 1, 2, 3 bars. And it looks like, I can't really take time to count, but if I remember right, I could get a good number, just under 20 on a bar. So that's like 2, 4, 60. I could raise roughly 60 of these queens on this bar in the method I just told you about. Starter hive, a cell starter hive, move them over to a finisher hive where they finish off those cups into cells, and then move these cells out into my mating boxes, and then I could watch them go out and mate and keep watching the brood as they lay, and then I know they're ready to sell. So in what I just told you, you could actually raise 50 to 60 queens. Now, it's not all about money, I know that, but I want to help you guys with a little living expense. I really do. Bees have helped me make a living, to be honest with you. I make my living, that's the only way I make a living, is off my bees. And off of you guys that are so great in sponsoring my channel or supporting me and buying my online courses and such. Bees are my livelihood. And I want to help you. I'm giving you out the secrets of how I raise queens, because, hey, there's room for everybody to raise queens, right? And I want you to make money if that's what you need. If you're rich and you don't care, you don't need money, you don't want to work because you don't need to work, you worked already and you're retired, I'm not talking to you unless you're just being entertained. I'm talking to people that are like, you know, I'm a beekeeper, I need to pay for this hobby, or I need to make a little more money, I got all these hives, honey's just not making money for me, I've got bills to pay, I want to help you out. You can start selling queens. You know what, I've actually been so successful at finding people that can raise queens for me. And so I can sell queens because I've taught other people how to raise queens, and they can bring them over and they're raising them according to my standards, according to what I want, you know, here in Illinois. And so I've oftentimes done that, and it's worked out really well for me. So that's something that I want to help you with, to show you that you can make money selling queens. But let's just do the math real quick for those of you that are having trouble paying your bills and you just don't know what else to do. And you love bees, you want to make a little money, maybe raising queens because you want to be outdoors, have fun with your bees, you know, make this hobby finally make you some money. I'll be honest with you and say I'm not a financial advisor, so don't take that the wrong way. And you know, you have the risk anytime you're dealing with livestock that your whole operation can perish because of some tragic problem, a bear, a disease, fire on the property, grass fire. I mean, so I want you to know this is not a for sure without challenges. But if all goes good, and it has for me, then all you have to do is learn to graft, learn to move these frames around, and learn where to put these cells when they're about ready to hatch, and then learn how to watch the quality of your queen as they start laying, as she starts laying, and then learn the art of putting her in a little queen cage and shipping her to your customer. It's not that hard. So if you take one bar, let's go simple, let's say you don't want to have a lot of hives, don't want to have a lot of headaches, so you just want to do one bar, and you're going to put 10 queen cells on here, and so you're going to have 10 opportunities here to sell a queen. You're going to sell a queen for $40 because you put a lot of work into this. Don't be skimpy. You work hard. Your hard work is worth money. Don't let people tell you that your work isn't worth anything. It is. And queens are precious. They're difficult to have the knowledge to know how to raise them. And so you're asking for that payment of that knowledge. So you have 40 queen cells, and you're successful, let's say, at raising 10 a week. So in 1 month, you've raised, there's 10 on here, you've raised 40 queen cells in a month. And you can sell, it takes about a month to cycle, so you can sell with just one bar, you could sell, you'd make $400 a month. Now that's good money. It helps. I mean, that's not going to be a house payment nowadays. Probably not going to be a car payment either, but it helps, you know. It helps pay the propane bill or get a tooth filled or something. But if you wanted to do twice as many, now you're up to $800. And that's pretty significant. And so you can just see how you can expand this out. And depending on where you live, you can really have good luck raising queens for a big part of the whole bee season, week after week. Well, I'm going to tell you more about this in my next video, and I want you to watch that. But I want to show you what my shirt says today. So look what it says. Being related to me is really the only gift that you need. And we've been talking about bees and queens and how they are related through different races and types and characteristics. So I want to have a coffee time. A lot of you have really told me you've been wanting some coffee time. That's when I sit down and have a little chat with you guys. So thanks for watching the video all the way through. So let's talk about the people that we are related to, because you know these are the holiday seasons and this is time when family gets together. Now let's be honest, in a beehive, when the family gets together, they get along pretty darn good. I'm amazed at how well bees get along. They really do. Now, they don't get along with bees from other colonies, but a colony gets along. They all work together. One bee can't make it without the help of all the other bees chipping in and working together, right? It's amazing. Single organism, single colony. So in a family, we have a lot of relationships, and some of those relationships are people that we're going to see for the first time in a long time around the holiday season. And it's interesting, isn't it? Let's talk about some of the different people that we run into during the holidays, because some of you are stressed out because you've got all these people coming over to your house and you're already thinking in your head, oh boy, you know, I've got all these different personalities, right? All these different personalities coming over to my house, and I don't know if I can deal with that. You're going to have Bob, and he's going to be there with Paul, and every time Bob and Paul are in the same room, they start talking politics and taxes and gas prices, and they start getting mad and they start fussing and fighting. Before long, they're all mad and going home. You know, it's just, I gotta find a way that I don't get Bob and Paul in the same room. It's terrible. Or listen, some of you might be my age where you don't have any young kids at home anymore. And so you've forgotten what it's like when young kids come over for Christmas or the holidays, and you know, they're all excited and they're like, whoa, they're jumping on your furniture and they're just like running through your house, and you've got this house all beautifully decorated because, you know, you thought it was really going to be a nice quiet time together with all your wonderful family. A lot of times we have this perfect image of what it's going to be like to have everybody over for the holidays. We're all going to be softly talking. We're all going to take our holiday cheer drink and stand by a piano in our holiday sweaters and softly sing some beautiful holiday songs together. It's going to be so nice with a warm glowing fireplace in the background, and we can gently just enjoy the moment and open our presents and eat some finger foods. No, that's probably not going to be how it is, right? You got the kids running through. Now, let me tell you about kids running through your house. I want to talk to you about that. Because I know some of you, if you're like me, you've forgotten what that's like to have young children at home. Even your grandchildren that you love, I know you can't, think of anything else but just letting them enjoy the moment. But on the other hand, you don't want them tearing your house up. And so you don't want to be the bad guy because you want them to enjoy the moment. But how do you control all of this? Let me give you a little bit of word of advice. Here's how I do it. You know what? I don't care if my grandkids are standing on my couch, or I don't like my grandchildren to run in the house only because I have some things. Look, this is not, this right here, I don't know if you can see it. It looks like a wrinkle. I have wrinkles, I'm not denying that. But I have one right here that I've had since I was little, because I was running through the house, and back when I was a kid, there was no safety protocols on coffee tables. They had really sharp edges. And so as I was running through my house, my brother shoved me, or I tripped or something, and I crashed right into the corner of the coffee table edge that was extremely hard and sharp, and I laid my head open. and I had to have stitches to stitch me up. And I had 8 or 12 stitches down here for running in the house. I think I did that on my bicycle though. But anyway, I've hurt myself so many times when I was a kid by running and tripping and falling. And so the only reason I don't like to see kids run in a house is because I think they can get hurt. I think they can trip and fall into the fireplace or something. That's why grandparents are like, hey, no running in the house. It's not because grandparents hate their grandkids having fun. It's just, it's not the place to run. But on the other hand, I'm kind of relaxed a little bit. I want my grandkids that are little, I want them to come over to my house and I want them to enjoy the experience. I don't want them to feel like they're in a museum. Don't touch that. Don't get that dirty. I want them to come over and have a good time. If they want to jump on my couch, I don't care. I know it doesn't look, I know some of you are like, man, you're crazy. You should whip their bottom. No, I mean, look, they're only going to do that a few years, right? It's like potty training kids. You know, moms, have you ever had a moment when you just felt like, I'm not going to be able to potty train my child? I've tried, it's not working. But wait, have you ever seen an adult that hasn't figured out potty breaks and all that? No, everybody figures it out. Some figure it out early. They're not going to be having to figure out how to do potty things when they're an adult. These kids that are over at your house having fun, they'll eventually settle down. They'll quit jumping on your furniture, but while they're jumping on it, I don't want them to get to seeing me as some mean old grandpa. Get off my grass! Don't touch my stuff! Because then when they get old enough to have their own car, they're not going to drive over and visit me because I'm a mean old grouch. It's just my thoughts. Now, put that in perspective. I'm not saying they should come over and destroy everything. You might want to talk to your children and say, hey, would you mind telling your children not to, destroy stuff or get dirt everywhere? We need to be responsible. But just don't be a mean old grouch to grandchildren. What about Bob and Paul that are talking politics? Get a tip jar and say, every time anybody mentions anything remotely political at our holiday gathering, you got to put $1 in the tip jar. And hold them to it. Kind of play it up to be silly, but look, let's just tell people, you know what? There's a lot going on in the world today. We all have different political views. This isn't the place to really talk about that. Let's don't do that. Let's calm down. No reason, because it's always going to end in an argument. Back in the old days, when I was a kid, I remember people would talk politics and they seemed like they could discuss it and be civil about it and disagree. Another personality that will be at your holiday gathering is the know-it-all. Now this is a know-it-all. You see know-it-alls in bee clubs too, don't you? The know-it-all has to tell everybody what they know. They'll take anything you're saying, anything, and they will change the subject. They'll bend it to talk about something that they know that they think you don't know. And they'll go as far as they can to tell you why you're wrong and make you feel like you're an idiot because they are the know-it-all. The know-it-all at the holiday party. Now you know you have a know-it-all coming, right? What are you going to do with the know-it-all? Here's what you need to do with the know-it-all. Don't set them up. Don't ask a question of a know-it-all to give them any room to start expressing everything they know. You just don't want to do that. Instead, have questions already geared that they will have to answer that does not allow them time to express everything they know. So you're going to have to ask a question like this. So Keith, how have you been feeling lately? You've been in good health? Everything healthy for you? There's no way to tell know-it-all stuff. I'm sure some of you are saying, oh no, I know-it-all would run with that. But no, they're probably not. Then you might say something like, what kind of hobbies are you in right now? You got things you're enjoying doing? Just simple, quick questions. Here's another personality that might be at your holiday party. The very quiet, introvert, sad person who feels like they're there and nobody wants to talk to them. Well, I'm going to sit over here in the corner because nobody likes me, and I'm sad and depressed because nobody wants to talk to me, and I'm just going to sit here and let people know that I'm not happy. You always have that person. And even though you try to engage them, they don't really, offer anything back, so it's kind of a tough thing to do. I always felt what I try to do is when I'm seating people at our gatherings, I know who those people are, I'll try to seat them between people that they enjoy talking with, people that I know enjoy talking to them. This is all about relationships. We are related to one another. We're family. We know each other. And a lot of times there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of maybe bad feelings. There's still some regrets, hurt feelings that go on around Christmas time. And when we all get together, that kind of comes out, and it can bring out a lot of bad feelings when we gather. So you have to go into this knowing that that exists, and you're going to do your part to try to make that not escalate. You're going to have to do your part to kind of lower your expectations. This is not going to be a time, I know, I wish it was, but it's not going to be a time when we all gather around the piano with a warm glowing fireplace and softly and gently enjoy each other's company while we sing Christmas songs. That's a fantasy, it's an expectation that is likely not to happen. By the way, another way to engage people into taking their minds off of each other or the tension in the room is to play a game. There's a lot of holiday games that you can play. We've done a lot of these at our house before when family comes over, when we ask people to guess songs, guess different Christmas songs. Go online, Google a bunch of party ideas for Christmas. There's a lot on there. And I remember the funniest thing that happened to us. You were supposed to guess these Christmas songs. And so I think if I remember right, you had a phrase and then you had to remember what song it goes with, or some idea and what song the idea goes with. And so this particular idea or this statement was Santa Claus going down a chimney. And one of my daughters said, chestnuts roasting on an open fire. The whole room just laughed and laughed and laughed about that. It was so funny just having these fun games to play like that. So think of some things you can do when your family gathers. If you're not going to sit around the piano and sing beautiful songs, play some fun games. Also, if you have some space or rooms, find some fun activities for the young kids to do. So cut out some drawings or have them answer some questions on, some worksheets that they might want to do, fun activities for Christmas. Have them do some things, and that would cut down on their being bored at your house or at the party. A lot of fun activities. So what we're trying to do is just mimic what bees do. Bees get together, they have a job to do, and it's winter time. My bees are clustered, hanging out in their hives. They're not really working that hard, and they're just enjoying each other's company. I hope you do too. We're going to continue my queen rearing coming up, so I want you to be sure and watch all of these videos that I'm making for you guys on queen rearing, because you told me that's what you wanted, and that's what I'm trying to do.